traditional music roots, but then also like starting to incorporate your own style into your music creations?
Well, you know, when I was growing up, I was heavily influenced by John Sykes from Whitesnake and John Norum, a lot of Johns, I guess. John Norum from Europe. You may know, yeah, some of you may not, younger people may not know of John Norum from Europe. But a lot of those guys, and that music and Rat and Metallica and all that stays in your head throughout the years. So eventually, when you began creating music, when you start writing, that flows through your fingers because it's in your brain all of the time. You begin playing and constantly working in that fashion. However, it just so happens that you're talking to not only a heavy metal musician, but a musician who plays a lot of different types, everything from music that sounds like it's coming straight out of the medieval period. Okay, and how that influences me is that when I go to write something, I have the references, just like so many other people do, to take a dare and put something into the heavy metal music that perhaps would not be expected by the general population. And it's because I went outside of the realm. But if you stick with the same, mumbo jumbo that you're used to, yeah, I mean that's great and everything. But when people listen to it, they'll say, "Okay, yeah, but I've heard this from the last 17 bands. What are you going to do that's any different than, let's say, Metallica, Rat, Whitesnake, or are you just another clone?"
Hmm.
That's when you take the other things that you've learned. Prime example, medieval music had, well, in Western medieval music, you had a lot of harmonies, and they were done in a very specific way. Well, you add that with heavy metal, and people listen to it and say, "Wow, I feel like I want to fight a dragon," and they don't even know why. They have no, you know, this is what I'm talking about. So you use other influences in your life, put them into the music, and I I suspect that if you keep doing it and keep working to get above the noise, you'll eventually get somewhere.
Nice. Kind of like having a big crock pot and you just throw in a little of this and a little of that, and it just simmers around in your brain. And then you come up with your own chili in the end. Okay.
I've
So,
seen.
what for you has been your most memorable performance to date, and what made that stand out to you?
This is interesting. Now, this is a lesson in preparation. Okay, many years ago, there was a young lady I was seeing, and she came to me and she said, "Robert, do you know country music?" I said, "Well, I mean, I've heard it. I mean, it sounds nice, sometimes, but can you play it?" And I said, "Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if push came to shove, I guess I could, belt out a few things here and there. What are you thinking?" And she said, "Well, there's a guy who needs a guitarist right now. His guitarist just backed out, and they're being paid a lot of money to do this gig." I said, "Oh, honey, no, no, this is not a good idea." I said it would take time and preparation for me to get to the point in which I would be worth the, in my estimation, worth the money that, or at least I would feel like I would be worth the money that they're paying. They're paying this band a lot of money, and if I'm going to go up on stage, I want to sound good. No, I don't want to. And so anyway, so um, I called this person up, the band, just to see what I was getting myself into. And it turns out that it was a friend from a long time ago who I had not spoken with, and about 10 to 15 years. And I said, "All right, what kind of trouble are you in?" He said, "Well, my guitar's backed out at the last minute." And I said, "When you say last minute, what do you mean last minute?" He said, uh, "The gig's tomorrow." I said, "Tomorrow?" I said, "You can't find anybody else?" I said, "You got to be kidding me." And he said, "No, Robert, you're the only person who responded." And I put my head down. And I said, you do realize that this is probably going to be a train. I'll do this for you. I'll do this for you, but this is going to be a train wreck, and you just need to know that going into it. Okay, we will do the best that we can do, and we will go up there, and we're just going to have to suck it up. It's that simple. There are no magical answers. But he said, "Robert, all right, fine. When can you be over here?" I said, "I suggest that we get started early in the morning practicing on stuff and going over what we know." He said, "Well, we're not going to have time for what do you mean we're not going to have time for? Are you out of your mind?" I said, "No, no, that's not." He said, "Robert, he said, my wife's got to do this, this, and this." And I said, "Fine, fine." And for some reason, I even agreed to do it because he was a friend, and I felt bad for the guy, and he's being paid a lot of money, so he was going to pay me too. Fine. So I get, you know, we finally get to the show, and I looked at the stage, and my heart just sank for this guy because I knew what was about to happen. And I didn't have to worry about anything because I would get in, I would get out and say, well, did my job, did what I came to do. I wish you the best, buddy. And nobody would ever remember it. Nobody was filming anything. It would just be a legend on stage. And I did know some country pieces. I knew the Wildwood Flower. That was a bluegrass hit, I guess you could call it. But for some reason, their idea of the speed of the song was not what I had heard from recordings. So I went much faster and they were much slower. So I look at the drummer and he goes, "Oh God!" And I said, "I told you, I told you." I said, so finally, to save this, and this is where we're getting into the story here and the important part. I went to him and I leaned over to the drummer who was the leader of the band. I said, "Listen, I can tell you how we can fix this, but you're gonna have to listen to me. We need to start playing some blues music, okay?" He said, "They don't want blues music." I said, "We don't have a choice." I said, "If you want to save this thing, this is the way to do it, okay? But if you want to keep on doing this, we're just going to screw this thing up." And so he listened to me for a little while. The audience pretty soon got an idea of what was happening. They were not stupid, even though some of them were probably pretty tipsy. We were hoping they would get more tipsy so we didn't have to sound good. But eventually, the audience members knew what was happening. They found out that we obviously hadn't played together before, and they started getting on the stage and dancing, and we all had a good time. We lasted for 3 hours somehow. I don't even remember how we did it, but we did. And everybody had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I got paid a bunch of money, and that was it. And as I'm walking out, the person who put on the venue comes to me, and she's a sweet country woman. She comes up to me and she says, "I just want to thank you that I know you're a good guitarist, and you're just not used to playing with them before, but I want you back." And I said, "I'm sorry, you want us back?" I said, That's good." So the idea of this is sometimes if you go into something and you have to do it, okay, if you make it into a blast, they'll want you back even if you don't sound great. So,
Well,
and
and to make your
preparation
point
is
about
if you
going
can,
out and showing that you're vulnerable, like you could have just kept putting up this front, like, no, man, we got it, and kept pushing through, and it would have been a complete train wreck. But instead, in the middle of all of that, you pivoted and kind of like everybody kind of got into like, this is the truth of the situation and what's going on right now. And everybody's like, whoa, this guy really stepped up to do this. Let's just have fun. And I think that's really cool.
and that is one of the key things in the music industry, in my estimation, is guts. Every time I go up and I play in front of somebody on TikTok, or you can catch me on TikTok too, and it's pure guts. I improvise, and I don't worry about anything. I just go in. I know I can play. I go in and have a good time. And if they see you're having a good time, they don't care that you mess up left, here and there.
It's
They,
true. Same thing with just doing a regular old show. It should be for having fun, not to just be there.
very true. You're too uptight. You stand like this, like a hot dog. I mean, people are just going to say, "You know what? Get me out of here. These people are making me anxious." So.
Right? Well, where can people catch you next? I'm guessing online, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, this week I'll be on TikTok. If you have a TikTok account, that's one sure way to catch me on 11 p.m. Eastern time. We're in Florida, so 11 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Usually the way it works is I play for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then I talk with the audience about whatever they want to talk about, and everybody's welcome.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for our conversation today. You had some great insight, and it was a pretty educational interview, honestly. You mentioned a couple of things that I found helpful along the way. So thank you for that. Part
I
of
do what I
our
can.
part of our Etopia project is not just that we're going to be putting on events or we're going to be live streaming bands or doing music videos, but this is an educational project. So I invite you all to come out and check out what we're doing on August 17th. You'll get all the details about the Etopia project. And if it sounds really cool to you, then you can sign up at the event. And we're going to have 4 really awesome bands performing. And you can find out more about them by visiting etopiafestival.com. You also can get your tickets there. There is a limited amount of people that can be at this venue. So go ahead, go to the website, pre-order your tickets and support these bands. You know, like a music video, live music video without anybody in the audience is not going to look as cool as if there's a whole bunch of people like jamming out. So we hope that you join us. Robert is going to be playing out in the garden area in between when the bands do their set changes. There is going to be drinks, there will be a food truck, and there's also going to be vendors so you can shop around in between too. Are you excited, Robert?
I'm excited. It's exhilarating. The anticipation. No, it's good. It's good. I'm actually very excited about this. This is something that I used to do quite a bit of back in my heyday.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to finally see you live. I've known you for a little bit, but haven't seen you perform in person. So looking forward to that. And again, that is August 17th from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Performers Academy. Thanks, Robert. See you guys all.